Hi. So now once having understood what revenue streams are all about, the next component that you need to decipher in your business plan is the cost of goods and services, or called in as COGS. COGS is just a jargon that is used in. It is cost of operating goods and services. Now how is this going to get impacted? Remember, this is the cost that will leave your bank your balances the moment you get in funds after selling your goods. Now what does this mean? Now, for example, let's say you run a restaurant. Now, what is the cost of goods that are going to be in a restaurant? For example, if you are procuring your vegetables, your meat, your milk, and all those things, fruits, and all those things, they all come at in cost of operating goods and services, because these are the goods that you need to bring in, then process them, and then sell it to your customers, and you generate revenue. Once the generation revenue happens, you will have to pass on certain portion of it to the vendors from where you had procured these goods. So the same way when it comes to services. So for example, if you are into services of delivery, now what happens here, the cost is the fuel that is going to go into the two-wheeler which is going to be used for delivering the goods. So keeping those things in mind, then also you have the big bags that you carry, whether they are reefer bags or they are non-reefer bags, they all come at a cost to you, because you need to make payments or you need to make payments to purchase them. So that is where the cost of operating goods and services comes into existence. Now specifically this is going to affect your profits. Why does that happen? Let us understand that. Now when you are selling something, let's say you are selling ice cream for 35 rupees, but whereas the cost of operating goods and services comes to around 30 rupees, so that means you are left with a slender margin of 5 rupees. Now what does this tell you is that though you are selling this, you may not have more amount of profits into it. So that will automatically have an impact. Should be this a revenue stream? You can take a call very easily, should I do this? Because it's not going to give you that huge amount of profit. So here is where your management abilities come into existence to think, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? This would be better when you write in a business plan before getting onto the implementation. Why does this so? So when if you have started into implementation, what happens is then is what you realize on the month of end, saying that, okay, though I had made so much of business, but what I'm left over is still minuscule. So to ensure that this shouldn't happen, it is better you have this in the business plan, wherein you give clarity of what would be the cost of goods and services. Now the same way, for example, even a manufacturing unit. Well, for him, the procurement of raw materials, the procurement of materials for converting it into a final product, then getting into the electricity cost, the water cost, the labor cost, all those things fall into this. Fine, you might say labor cost is where you are going to pay them salaries. Perfectly fine. But you still need to consider it here also, because if the labors are not there, you will not have optimum level of productions happening. So keeping these things in mind is where cost of operating goods need to be written down on a very careful note, because this is going to impact the bottom lines. That will automatically impact should this be a revenue stream. You would have seen in many restaurants, suddenly some menus disappear from the menu cards. Why is it so? Because of COGS. Because they were not generating enough amount of revenues or the profits what the restaurant was expecting, because their cost of operating goods and services was much higher. So you can take a judgment here, being a CEO of a company or a startup or a founder or having an idea. Keeping in mind this is where your idea validation or your strategy of how are you going to generate revenue is going to be interlinked. So keeping these things in mind is where you need to plan how your COGS are going to get affected. Let's say you are into a business where you are trying to manufacture mobile phones. So what does the cost of goods and operating services come in here? It will be your distributor cost, your packaging box cost, your designer cost, the cost of raw material, all this fall into this. Fine, they may get duplicated at some stages, but you still need to have them here, and these are the various parameters that you need to keep it in the cost of operating goods and services, or the so-called COGS. Now going forward, let me explain to you in a much more simpler manner. It's like, for example, if you're having a chewing gum or a gum which is 2 cents. Now the cost of operating goods in this is the raw material, the artificial flavors, the purchase of things that have gone into making the product, and the distribution cost and the wrapper, everything gets calculated before you add on to your the profits. So that is how you can also define your pricing strategy, which we'll be discussing. Now what happens here is this will give you clarity when you're trying to have a strategy of below par, on par or premium that will get decided because of your COGS and the amount that you are planning to keep in as your profits. Usually for any product, when you look around, it is around 8 to 20% in the range. It might be much higher when it comes to niche products. So that is how the COGS is going to affect your bottom lines and also affect, do you really need to have a revenue stream. For example, you might be having a video production company wherein your revenue stream is you are going to shoot for weddings or celebrations. But at the same time, if you are employing 10 to 15 people to do a same job, whereas the payment that what you are receiving is going to be easily getting distributed within the people who had gone there, the equipments that you had rented out, paying to them, and all those things, whatever that you are left out with is minuscule. So what happens here is, though you are busy, you have done your job, you have got a client, but the client realization also should be there. So this is where a CEO can easily take care of average revenue per hour. So you need to understand, if you are working for 8 hours for a celebration shoot that is happening in, how are you going to calculate the cost when it is the bottom line? You need to divide by number of hours. So that will give you clarity, how much did you earn per hour. So that is how COGS are going to be a very important role, and strategic decisions need to be taken here by the top management. Hope it's all clear. Thank you.